Well, this report was commissioned by the Bishops' Conference, who will be meeting today, and the findings of this report identified 3,677 individual victims of sexual assault by 1,670 members of the Catholic clergy here in Germany. Over half of the victims were under 14 years old, and most of them were male. Now, this report caused shock and horror when it was reported in the press here in Germany earlier this month, but today will be the first day that the bishops themselves will be discussing the findings of this report. They say they plan to do so with openness and transparency. But already there are critics from the media and certainly from victims' organisations that are criticising this report as not going far enough. They point to the fact that this report doesn't identify by name a single victim or perpetrator, and many victims groups say that they were not contacted at all by the researchers of this report. And even though the researchers of this report travelled to dioceses across Germany, they didn't investigate some institutions which come under the umbrella and control of the Catholic Church here, such as Catholic schools, for example. So it's thought that the extent of this abuse could be further reaching. And also the researchers who put together this report had to rely on most part from information that was provided to them by the Catholic Church. So it is thought that these findings could only really be the tip of the iceberg.
And as you're mentioning there, they used information provided by the Church. This report was commissioned by the Church. Have there been any calls for an independent investigation into these accusations?
Absolutely, Annalise. This is exactly what victims groups are calling for. They are demanding an independent and state investigation into the extent of the abuse by members of the Catholic Church in Germany over this time period. They're also calling for any sort of judicial proceedings to be overtaken by authorities because, according to this report, only a third of the reported cases of sexual abuse over the years were actually handled by the Church, and that was internally. Fewer than half of the reported cases were actually taken to court. And Cardinal Reinhold Marx, who's overseeing the Bishops' Conference today, says he promises justice for the victims. But this, of course, will prove to be very difficult. We're talking about 70 years here of abuse that happened. So this is going to be, of course, very difficult. And there's a lot of pressure on the Bishops' Conference today to come out with full explanations for how this happened, how this was allowed to happen for such a long period of time, and also, of course, promises that it will never happen again, that there will be structural reforms within the Church for this to happen again. And of course, what is happening here in Germany within the Catholic Church, of course, feeding into other instances around the world of similar problems in Catholic institutions in other countries. So it also raises a lot of sort of global questions about the problems and institutions within the Catholic Church that go beyond Germany's borders.